And now, may the Lord add his blessing to my witnesses to his holy word. My son Nathan, when he was 4 or 5, had an invisible friend. The name of his invisible friend was Billy. I never considered Nathan to be a particularly imaginative child, but when it came to Billy, he was indeed a particularly imaginative child. When I was reading the Harry Potter series, I was continuously amazed that J.K. Rowling wrote a whole new world into existence. How did she come up with it? Where did it come from? So it was with Nathan and his invisible friend Billy. "Where are you going?" I'd ask Nathan as he headed out the door. "Out to play with Billy. Didn't you hear him knock?" "Oh, sorry, I didn't," I played along. "The dishwasher is running." He'd come back in after an hour or two. "Billy's mom came over to get him," he'd explain. "He had to go home." Billy even had a dog. The dog's name was, oddly enough, Troll Knot. How Nathan came up with the name Troll Knot is beyond my reckoning. I have to admit that when Billy first came into Nathan's life, I found myself a bit concerned. This was before the internet, but I did some old school research on the subject. It turns out my concerns were unfounded. Invisible friends are not harmful for children, just the opposite. They are beneficial. Make-believe, fantasy, these things are good for children. Hence the enduring popularity of fairy tales. Above all, my research taught me that one must never deny the existence of the invisible friend. That would be to crush a child's dreams. But as Nathan and Billy's relationship dragged on, to tell the truth, it started to give me the creeps. Nathan came in one day and said Billy couldn't play because he was in trouble with his mom. "What happened?" I asked. "He ran over Troll Knot with his bike," he explained. "On purpose," he added, giving me a knowing look, as though we were in on a secret about Billy's dark side. I was stunned. I was aghast. I was speechless. "Is Troll Knot okay?" I managed to stammer. "No, he is not," Nathan said. He said no more, and I didn't ask. To this day, I don't know if Billy killed Troll Knot or not. After that, I must admit, I wanted to deep six Billy, but I didn't know how. It turned out I didn't have to. Nathan deep sixed him himself. One day, Nathan's uncle came by. He had been hearing about Billy for quite some time, but apparently I forgot to send him the memo that Billy was invisible. "How's Billy?" he asked Nathan. "Billy's dead," Nate replied flatly. Nathan's uncle was devastated. Tears welled in his eyes. "How did it happen?" he choked out. I took him aside and explained to him that Billy was invisible. "What?" he said, teetering between relief and outrage. It was Nathan's way of finally putting Billy to rest, so to speak. Billy was dead. Nathan had outgrown him. Billy, Nathan's invisible friend. Billy wasn't real, of course. But can we conclude from this that all things that are invisible aren't real? No, we can't. Clearly, some things that are invisible are not real, like Billy. But some things that are invisible are very real, like faith, like hope, like love. At least the Apostle Paul writes as though they are. So some things that are invisible are real. We must consider the question case by case. I suppose. Here's something else, invisible, that is real. The sins of omission. I'm sure you know them. It's when you need to say something, but you don't. It's when you need to act, but you don't. It's when you need to make a decision, but you don't. It's when you need to bestow forgiveness, but you don't. It's what you need to share, but you don't. It's when you need to risk, but you don't. It's when you need to right a wrong, but you don't. It's when you need to effect justice, but you don't. And the sins of omission are particularly insidious precisely because we are tempted to think that because they are invisible, they aren't real. But they are real. They are the real result of denial, avoidance, laziness, apathy, cluelessness, and fear. Let me give you an example of just how real they are. It hits uncomfortably close to home because it's born of my own experience. Now, I thought I had the sins of omission covered. I realize that even though they are invisible, they are real, after all. That's the first step. Most people don't realize this. So I thought I had them covered. No room for improvement here. There's a very young woman who begs at its streetlight right near where I live. And when I say very young, she looks to be about 15. She carries a cardboard sign that says she is homeless. Now, there are various views on giving to beggars, but I always give to beggars. People say they are probably not really homeless, but I don't care if they're not really homeless. They are still begging in the street. That's not what you do when all is well. But this girl is definitely homeless. Her hair is matted. Her face is a dusky red that bespeaks exposure to the elements. Her hands are stiff, coarse, covered with cuts and scrapes and filthy gray. People say, too, that it funds their vices. But I don't care if it funds their vices. Let's admit it. We fund our own vices. Her vices might be all that she has. But mostly I give to beggars because it is Jesus' express command to do so. Always err on the side of the express command of Jesus over your own view. I saw her last week, but I had no money. I should have known that she would be at that light. But of all the things I remember to prioritize, I failed to prioritize her. I gave her money if I happened to have it, then forgot about her. Oh well, I'll get her the next time, I thought, with a pang of guilt. But then my conscience kicked in. Not good enough, my conscience imparted. So I drove to the bank and took out a number of $20 bills so I'd have some in store, and made a note to do so again in a few weeks. I drove back to the light and gave her a 20 with a note paper clipped to it that read, "Here's my phone number. Call me anytime." She called me that night. I vowed then and there not to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to those who are, to say the least, down on their luck, because it's a sin of omission. And I can think of something else that is invisible and real. The past. So let's visit the past of Amos's day. Apparently, the sins of omission are timeless, for they were egregiously manifest in his day. In our Old Testament lesson, Amos depicts the idle rich, and what a picture it is. How they luxuriated. They lounged on beds of ivory. Let that sink in. ivory. They drank fine wine. They adorned themselves with costly ointments. They tickled their harps. And that's about all they did. Outside their windows, injustice and the misery that attends it abounded. Debtor prisons jammed to the gills. Due process under the law denied to the powerless. The poor victimized by the wealthy. The idle rich didn't care. Their fellow humans all around them needed rescue and needed it desperately, but they didn't care. They were enjoying their lives. But God was not enjoying their lives. We are Christians. This means we believe that just as the people of Amos's day have done, one day we will be called to give an account of our lives for the things we did and for the things we did not. Let us do what we can and should and must. Amen.